Today, Punjai is going to go ahead and discuss kind of the process of migration. We'll go over that in just a little bit. So our agenda today is we're going to tell you a little bit about Astra. We've been around for over 10 years, and then we're going to go ahead and walk you through different migration tools, the migration process, and also how Astra can assist you with your migration. And then we'll also have a question and answer. As you can tell, everyone is muted. So if you have a question, when you notice in the toolbar for the GoToWebinar, there'll be an option for you to go ahead and ask a question. And we might hold it to the end, but if it's the perfect timing when we're addressing that topic, we will go ahead and we will interrupt and have Punjai answer your question as it comes. So feel free to ask the questions at any given time. And then from there, as long as the timing works out, we'll go ahead and address those for you. A little bit about Astra. We've been around since 2008, so we've been a product and services partner for a little over 10 years now. We have a really large consulting team that focuses on the IFS targeted verticals. We can do anything from a basic report all the way to a full-on implementation or upgrade. And for those of you on this call, you probably are somewhere in the upgrade process or thinking about the upgrade process or even an implementation. We also provide some great products that help complement IFS and your investment in IFS, like Fast AP that automates your AP automation, Fast Docs, which takes any data off of documents that you're entering into IFS and helps with content management, Auto Archive, which will go ahead and file all of your documents inside IFS very quickly. And we also have in development Fast Photo, which is getting your photos from a mobile phone and get them attached right inside IFS. And lastly, we offer a supplier portal with our partners with Decos as well. So we have a bunch of products and services that we can offer inside IFS. But today we're talking about data migration. And at this point, I am going to go ahead and pass it off to Punjai, and he is going to walk you through all of his expertise on data migration. Punjai, take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Hi, hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me all well. My name is Punjai Selvaraj. I am with Astra. Been there with Astra for like 5 years now, but I've been working with IFS for about 14-15 years. So I have about 20 years of experience in IFS. Also, I have been doing this IFS data migration using the data migration toolkit, we shortly call MTK toolkit, for more than 5 years. Actually, I work on migration from Astra and also part of IFS migration team. I've been working with migration work for more than 5 years. So with that introduction, I'm going to start on the IFS data migration. When we look into that, we are going to see what is the importance of data migration. You can see system as only as strong as the weakest link. Garbage in, garbage out. So we want to be very careful what we are getting into IFS from your legacy system. That's what we are going to deal with. So we need to be very careful. It's very important that what we are going to migrate from your legacy system. Your legacy system, not sure how old it is, or it was, or what are the constraints that you had in your database or any other systems that you had. But when you go into the IFS, there are a lot of business logic validation that need to be strictly followed, and in addition to Oracle validation. So it is very important to see what we are getting from your legacy system and what's going into the IFS. So the migration is very important. So IFS implementation only as successful as the data inside. So we need to make sure we are getting the correct data and properly inserting with all the passing through all the business logic validation successfully. So that's very important. Very important for the migration, data migration. As we look into the Astra's migration work, I mentioned to you, we have worked with 60+ customer in migration, done the migration. in 10 plus years total. We have spent about 9,000 plus hours on this type of work. We have dealt with the different industries, customers in food and beverage, industrial equipment, healthcare, and so on. So we know what are the data we are getting from, and how we are migrating into IFS in these different industries. Where is migration needed? New IFS implementations. Of course, if you're a new customer, we need to have the data migrated from your legacy system. First step, we need to get the extract from your legacy system and then transform to the way it's required in IFS, and then load data into IFS tables. So there are several processes involved in this. Also, the migration needed for upgrades. If you're going to re-implementation or upgrading from older version, you probably need this IFS migration. If you are acquiring some new companies, you're already using IFS, but you have acquired some new companies, or you created new divisions or sites, you split some sites. So you will be thinking about doing some data migration from one company to another, or when you create new divisions or sites, you want to move your pods to different sites or something like that. So that's where you would see the need for migration. Large scale data updates, some part conversions, you want to change your part from lot batch number to not lot tracking, you want to change your pricing standard price to average weighted average price, those kind of things that you would be thinking about it. So the migration can do those tasks as well. So when you look into the basic migration data flow, you can see there are different types of legacy systems. Each customs are different. You have one or more than one legacy systems that you will be extracting data from. So you would have that, and then you would need going through mapping and creating the extracts, and that using that extracts, we use the migration toolkit, that is IFS data migration toolkit. We move the data into first Miger, and then we can make a copy of the Miger to test after the migration, just for the validation. Every time you have a prod is updated with basic data, we make a copy of the prod to Miger to do the migration, so that you have some basic data already in the database. Then we do the migration process. There will be more than one migration passes, the repeating processes, until the desired cleanup and load is achieved. So would expect, based on the complexity of the data in your legacy system, you will have a multiple migration passes until you see the data is clean and the way you wanted. Then we can go and do the data migration in go live. Okay, so before the go live, there could be several migration passes until you are really comfortable with your data in IFS. What are the tools required for this? Data migration application tool, that is what is called migration toolkit. Shortly, it's called MTK. This is something you have bought in IFS in your sales agreement. So this will be installed separately, even though you have a general build for IFS. The migration toolkit will be installed separately. So this, you need to have this data migration application in order to do the data migration through this. We also call this heavy migration tool. Then you need SQL loader. It's a part of the Oracle client. So you would have access to get the Oracle client from IFS, or you should be able to download from Oracle web page. So once you install the Oracle client, then you will have access to the SQL loader. So these two are mandatory for migration. And of course, Microsoft Office, like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, those are required optional ones, but still you will be using this. And of course, these days, everybody using Microsoft Office. And there are some user documents that you can view those user documents in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. You might be extracting data in Excel or CSV file. So, these tools are also required. And of course, there are some SQL developer tool like PL SQL developer or Oracle SQL developer or Toad. It's optional again. If you have some knowledge already in Oracle, this helps to look into your extract that loaded into the container table. I'll go through the details later, but you have, if you have already some skill in SQL Plus, you should be able to use one of these tools to look into some data or, review the data in the container table after you loaded the extract. Let's look into the migration process. It's like a 4-step process. So step 1 is the planning and preparation. So basically what you do is you are going to identify what you are going to migrate from your legacy system. So you may have a lot of things in there, but you don't want to migrate everything into IFS. So you're going to identify that. There will be a questionnaire. Questionnaire will be produced or send it to you, so you can go through that and identify, say, yes, I'm going to migrate customer, going to migrate supplier. In the customer, what are the areas that you're going to migrate? Customer info, customer address, customer company. So those informations that you're going to identify in there. And then going to map that legacy data with IFS fields or columns, the corresponding IFS fields. So that is very important, so that we know what is going where in IFS. So that mapping will be done with functional people generally, along with technical people in there. So the functional people from Astra can help in mapping your legacy system data to IFS tables and fields. The next thing is creating extracts. Creating extract is basically something you are trying to extract your data from your legacy system. So it could be done by generally just pulling into Excel sheet, or you can use some tool to extract data from your legacy system. So you can have a different legacy systems in different ways it works. So you are very familiar with your legacy system, so you know how to extract data from there. We can give some help on that too, to do the extracts, but you will be the one who will be responsible to create extracts. Then also, in order to have, to do the migration initially in Migrate database, you need to get the Migrate database prepared. Generally, we need to install the migration toolkit, and then make sure you have set up the company and sites and all those things in there before we start the migration process. Those are all required. And for initial migration, you do not need to have all the basic data set up already, because how the migration works is it can create most of the basic data by the migration process itself. So it will say it's auto created by migration. So initial pass, like pass 1, we can let the migration create basic data, but eventually, as you go from next passes, you need to be looking into creating basic data in prod That's how most of the customers, they do start doing it in prod, entering the basic data. As you make the decisions on the basic data, you will be entering in the prod, and then you will make the copy of the prod to migrate. That will be used for the subsequent passes, like pass 2 or pass 3 or something like that. So that is something, it comes under step 1. The next thing is step 2. Once you have all the extracts ready and your migrate database is all set with all the company and sites and everything, then we can load the extracts. This load the extracts can be done in IFS using the Oracle client software, SQL Loader, SQL Plus. We can give the extract load training with with you guys, and so that probably like in a 1 hour training, remotely. We can tell how you can use the IFS application to load the extracts that you have extracted from your legacy system. So that, and then advisor is a part of validation. It's an initial validation. It's an extract level validation. Once you loaded your extract into container tables, that we call that container tables in migration, because it's the hold table or temporary table. So all the data are transferred from your legacy system or from the extract, mostly extracts in CSV file or EXP file, that will be loaded into Oracle table called container tables, migration container tables. So the advisor will kind of scan through those tables and try to see there is any master entity data relationship missing. So that will tell you give you the errors and issues, and if you have anything in your extract. So you give an opportunity to fix that well in advance before we move on going into migration execution or any other steps. So it's a very good process in the migration, that you use the advisor and fix the issues in the extract. The step 3 is execution. So once you have loaded the extract and completed the advisor run successfully, we are going into the next step, execution. That's where we further validation take place in the extract level. We call that extract exceptions. Again, it does the further detailed validation, and also it checks with some IFS basic data or IFS setup, like calendar or site or something like that, even some accounts and all those things. So it will give if you have any issues in there, the extract exceptions will tell. So you have another opportunity to go and fix your extracts or fix in IFS if it's required. And then you can pass those extract exceptions. The next one is prerequisites. This is where some of the mapping that needs to be done, for example, like country code, currency, per term, supplier per term or customer per term, those kind of things can be done. And also prerequisites creates basic data if you're not provided basic data in an IFS. So when it creates the basic data, it's going to tell it's loaded by migration. So you would know after the past 5, when you look into the database in IFS and looking into the basic data, you're going to see whatever the basic data name, and then description will be loaded by migration. That way you can differentiate which ones, what ones are loaded by migration. So later on you will have an opportunity to go through those and then decide what you want to do. You want to consolidate the basic data and you want to create in advance so that migration do not need to create those. That you will do it in prod, and then the next pass, when you make the copy of the prod to migrate, your basic data already exists in migrate. Okay. Then after the prerequisites, you need to clear all the issues, all the issues in prerequisites before you move to migration execution. And in the migration execution, there is a two mode. One is a test mode. There is the feature that you can run the migration execution in test mode. That will only go through all the business logic validations, but it will not commit to the table. It will not insert into the table. So that way, before it goes into the table, we'll have an opportunity to catch those issues, that's coming through the business logic. Like when you try to insert data in IFS application manually, it goes through a lot of validation. So this migration execution will do the same thing. It goes through all IFS business logic validation in IFS API. So once you do it in the test mode, if you have any errors, we can look into that, review it, and then see how we can fix it. Once it's all fixed and you run it in test mode again, if it's 100% successful, then we do it in real mode. That's where it's got inserted into the table one by one. So after the execution, that's after all the areas are migrated, then you do the validation. When you do the validation, you make a copy of the migrate to test or dev or something, some new database, and you go through with the technical and functional people, do the analysis, and you see any exceptions or error and all those things. Then you get back to the person who was in charge of migration, so they would know and they can correct the extract, and in the next pass it will be better migration. Okay, so if I've probably kind of gone through in detail in each step. So what we can do as Astra, we can give a full assistance to prepare the master production database, like setting up the company site, working along with your functional people. We can also help you to copy the prod to migrate. We can do the data field mapping from legacy to IFS. Our functional people can work with you guys and identify the areas. There is a mapping document that comes with the migration toolkit for package. So we would be using that, and we can go through each field and see how we can match that field with the field in the legacy system. Okay, limited assistance to create extracts. That's only because we do not have all the knowledge that you have with your legacy system, but we should be able to help, some extent, if you know what we are actually doing in there. Extract loading, again, it's populating the migration table with the legacy system. We can help in install Oracle client software. We can, as I mentioned, extract load training and run load extracts in IFS application. We can train you, or we can provide resources to run or actually load the extracts in IFS application. We can resolve issues in loading extracts, data formatting, mandatory column, what are those issues? We should be able to help you in that. And also we can do the advisor training, or we can run the advisor ourselves to identify any issues and work with you guys and see how we can correct the extracts. In running the migrations, again, I mentioned to you earlier, run exceptions, review the exceptions, the errors, review and set up parameters. Some of the companies or site, and suppose you want to migrate only your historical data, like only up to 2010 or 2015 or something like that. We can set up the parameters before you start your migration. Run prerequisites, You can correct errors on rerun, reviews, and set target values in the transformations. This is what I was talking about, mapping the country code, currency, pay term, all those things can be done in the transformations. Run migrations for each functional area. That needs to be run in a specified sequence based on their dependency. So that is involved in the execution, and then we can review the results and fix the issues if you have anything in the migration, actual migration execution. And also finally, we should be able to run some reports. So we'll see how much, what is the success rate of migration, how long it take in each areas and for each container. So it will have a, allow you to prepare for your go live time window. So those are things can be run, and we can provide assistance in all the above areas. Okay. The next one is the validation. That is, we can also help you to, even though I don't have it here, copy the Migrate to test database or any other database, and then our functional people can be with you guys and work with you and to go through those migrated data and look into the results and the issues that we come through during the migration process, and take the migrated data through all IFS business processes and make sure everything goes well. And we can address all issues, exceptions, business logic, core team verification before starting the next migration process. Okay, so that is generally like a new customer. IFS to IFS migration follows all the same 4 steps, but the step 1 is the different in there is the extract preparation comes from directly from your earlier version of IFS. So just by creating the database link, we should be able to get the extract. You don't need to do anything separately, putting it in a CSV file or a EXP file and load extract, all those things. It's part of the IFS migration process. It can extract from your source database into the containers in the target database. So that you can do that, and we know why you are doing the IFS migration. So basically, we have gone through these things. But other than the first step, step 2, 3, and 4 are all same. There is no change, no difference from new implementation to IFS migration. What other MTK features, that is migration toolkit features that you would see if you have your database has grown so big, you may have a lot of customer order, shop order that's affecting your performance of the database. You were thinking about archiving some historical data that you don't use it, or you were only needed for long-term use or reporting or auditing. So you would be thinking about doing archiving. So basically, you are moving the data to not actively use data to separate tables in or outside IFS. So you can put it in another table in IFS itself, in Oracle, or you can take it outside IFS and you can keep it for your reporting or auditing purposes. Next is the sanitizing. That's like replacing the proprietary or classified sensitive values with non-meaningful values. So you can put something like some AAA or SSS or 9999 or something like that. So that you can be done through the MTK toolkit. It can do the sanitizing. So you want to share the database with third party, but you don't want them to see those classified values or sensitive values or something like that. So you can use this sanitizing tool in MTK toolkit, and then you can send the database to the third party. As I mentioned earlier, part conversion, you want to change, as your business requirement changed, you want to change your inventory valuation from standard cost to weighted average, or weighted average to standard cost. You can do that. Also, we can do lot tracking to not lot tracking, those kind of things. You should be able to do through this MTK toolkit. Custom fields migration, these days customers use a lot of custom fields in different areas. So this can be also done through the MTK toolkit, and we should be able to provide assistance in all these areas. And then also want to talk to a little bit about this F&D MIG tool we call Simple tool. This is something, IFS built-in tool. You can do the data migration from Excel spreadsheet to a single logical unit. Sometimes you can do some multiple logical units as well. If you have a parent-child relation, you should be able to do that. And then you can also create output file, not just going from outside to IFS. You can get some data from IFS into some output file like CSV file or something like that. So F&D MIG tool can we do that. So IFS can provide training, or we can also give you resources if you need anything in this area. Excel add-on is another tool that something similar to F&D MIG tool, but you can use the Excel that has a feature to connect to IFS, like you log on to IFS application. Excel, you can log on to IFS application, and then you can migrate data, multiple LUs from Excel, or you can retrieve data from IFS to Excel. You can modify or insert from Excel, and then you can migrate to IFS using this Excel add-on tool. We should be able to provide, again, training and support in this area as well. So coming to the last conclusion, in summary, so Astra can provide functional technical support in IFS MTK migration toolkit, we call it heavy tool, for new implementations, IFS to IFS migrations, archiving, sanitizing, part conversions, and custom field migrations. Of course, F&D MIG tool is a built-in IFS tool that's available in Solution Manager in our IFS application. We can provide training and support as well. Also, Excel add-on is another tool that comes with IFS application. So I hope I was able to give you what you want to know about the IFS migration and what Astra can do for you. So I think that's end of the
Perfect
presentation. Yep.
Thank you, Punjai. If you have any questions at this point, there's a questions box that you can go ahead and type in your questions from there, and we can go ahead and address them. So again, if you would have any questions, you can go ahead and insert them in the questions box. One question that came up, Punjai, is you went over some of the tools for migration. Is there any of those tools that are preferred or required or optional when it comes to that?
Well, I mentioned to you these are the tools that's required. So the first one, DM apps, that is a migration toolkit. That is something the customer buys with their sales agreement. So that is a mandatory tool that needed for migration. Without this, you would not be able to perform the migration. Of course, another one is SQL Loader. That is also mandatory, that you need to have that. But the other next ones like Microsoft Office and PL SQL Developer, they are optional. That you don't really need that in the migration process, but you may need that for other purposes.
Okay, perfect. A question was asked about, are we going to send out the slide deck for this? And yes, we will. What we'll do is we'll send out the slide deck as well as a recording of the webinar, probably in the next 24, 48 hours, so that you do have access to this, as well as if any more questions come up with that. Another question is, has there been a migration toolkit release for apps 10 yet? Is there any details on that?
No, as I learned from IFS, they are planning to do by end of July or early August. That's where, because I don't see big change in the migration toolkit as such, but there are some functionalities added, or some containers are created or modified or something like that. So we don't see a big change in the toolkit, but it will be modified as required by app 10, but that will be released only, as I see right now, is by end of July or early August.
Okay, perfect. Another question just came through. What can you archive using the MTK if users can access the archive data after archiving?
I mean, that is something the customer can set up the security, or only the people who have access to the tables, they would be able to look into those archive data, because it's totally going to be a separate tables that you should be able to handle that through security. So not everybody can see it, but you should be able to see it. If the user has the access, they can do a query or something and able to see that in IFS or outside IFS.
Okay, thank you, Poonjay. Again, if you have any more questions, you can enter them in the questions box as well. Otherwise, I think we might be running down to our final ones. We'll give it just a couple more seconds to make sure none come in. Again, we'll be sending out this PowerPoint along with the recording of this presentation in case there's somebody that would like to review it, or if there's someone that wasn't able to make it in your organization, that this would be helpful to. You'll have access to all of this. I think that's all the questions, Poonjay. I appreciate all of your expertise, and I appreciate everyone that joins time. And again, thank you very much. If any more questions come up, you are more than welcome to reach out to us, and we can go ahead and get you whatever answers that we can provide to you. Until then, thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Bye.